I'm having fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like this job. I like it.
You like it?
I do. Kicking someone's ass or something like that, right? I will take it from you and bury it up your ass, and there won't be a thing that you would be able to do to stop me. But I need about maybe, I don't know, like maybe 20,000 more like me.
Brave enough to stand up for it. You're too scared.
I'm too scared.
You're too scared.
Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there, Big Nose. And put it in YouTube, and then you're gonna see who you're talking to.
If you were active on social media between 2018 and 2021, chances are you stumbled across a clip of this guy in Joker makeup ranting about politics on Omegle. This is Paul Miller, better known online as Gypsy Crusader. He wasn't just role-playing as a comic book villain for fun, he was using the clown paint as a mask to push some of the most extreme, hateful ideologies you could imagine. For those unfamiliar, Gypsy Crusader was a self-styled citizen journalist, a far-right activist, and a white supremacist who spiraled so deep into extremism that the FBI came knocking in 2021. He was sentenced to just over 3 years in federal prison on firearms charges. And when he got out, he tried to pick up right where he left off.
Amanda, what have you been able to confirm about what's happening here?
Yeah. Well, Rusty, we just got the information seconds ago from the FBI that 32-year-old Paul Miller of Fort Lauderdale was arrested for allegedly being a convicted felon in possession of a firearm.
Why do you think he got so much attention? Well, it wasn't just the cosplay, it was the content. He openly praised Hitler, called for a so-called race war, and spewed constant racist and anti-Semitic rants at random strangers online. In short, he wasn't just edgy, he was flat out promoting neo-Nazi propaganda.
My message today, guys, is I'm rallying the troops, as always, telling our boys that the fight of their lives is coming, and it's upon us. Soon, collapse is inevitable. Okay. What's gonna happen is, and we can only hope and only pray for and the crime to get to such a degree that the cops are forced to quit and abandon their posts. When all out chaos is in the streets, then and only then, and we will see who seizes control of the world this time. I'm a fraction of the population, but I commit half the crimes. Who am I?
The Joker?
Online, reactions were split. Some corners of the internet weirdly idolized him, treating him like a rebel clown fighting against the system. Others saw him as a deeply radicalized guy whose own choices landed him behind bars. In today's documentary, we're going to unpack his story. From his early days as a martial arts trainer to his fall into online extremism, and eventually to his arrest and prison sentence. By the end, you can decide for yourself. Was Gypsy Crusader just an innocent person who got wronged by the system, or a dangerous extremist who got exactly what was coming to him? Gypsy Crusader Paul Miller was born on August 11, 1988 in New York. He comes from a mixed background, with his mother being Mexican and his father of Romani descent. There isn't much publicly known about his childhood, education, or early life, mostly because the spotlight didn't hit him until much later. Paul essentially went from being a relatively unknown guy to blowing up on the internet in 2018, only to crash hard into federal custody by 2021, a rise and fall in just 3 short years.
Everybody that watches me, everybody who enjoys my stream, I love you all. I appreciate all of you. But you don't know what I have to go through to do this to you, for everyone. The amount of harassment that I have to deal with is on a level that most people would curl up into a ball and cry someplace.
But before his face paint, hate speech, and FBI mugshot, there was a very different Paul Miller. His early life may be fuzzy, but one thing we do know is that he was deeply involved in martial arts, particularly Muay Thai. He began training seriously in 2008 when he was about 20 years old, and within just 3 months he was already competing in his first fight. His progress was fast, almost unnaturally fast. Eventually he climbed the ranks to become a regional light heavyweight champion, and even claimed the title of U.S. national champion. For a time it seemed like combat sports would be his life's path. But fate had other plans. A serious accident cut his fighting career short, halting what could have been years of competitive matches. For most people, this would have been a devastating blow, a moment where ambition meets reality and collapses. And for Paul, it probably was. But he didn't sit in that misery for long. Instead, he pivoted. He became a trainer, sharing his skills with others as a martial arts coach, while also juggling odd jobs to keep the bills paid. He pumped gas, worked in local marts, and hustled wherever he could. Around the same time, Paul dipped his toes into YouTube. His original channel has since been wiped clean, but archived fragments show a much different version of him. He uploaded training tutorials, motivational pep talks, and even some mild political commentary.
I'm out here just trying to give people the truth, you know?
There was people walking up behind you.
Yeah, you never know. And I got patriots looking out for my back, seeing people coming up behind. Yes, I'm sorry, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I was walking with my man Ken here, and I was just telling him that there's not even really a point of talking to them anymore. They're insane, they're delusional. Anything you say to them, it just goes in one ear and out the other. So what's the point of even trying to find common ground with them?
They're fixing their ways, unfortunately. And you know, we have to blame mainstream media for a great deal of this.
Gypsy Miller. I'm from New Brunswick, New Jersey.
What motivates you in the gym and then your fights?
What motivates all of us? You know, because we want to be more than what we are, to be remembered.
In one video, he spoke proudly about working odd jobs, telling viewers there's nothing shameful in doing whatever it takes to survive, especially in a place as expensive as New Jersey.
Hit the bullet, man. I went out and I got myself a regular day job and I joined the Trump workforce. It's nothing serious, just pumping gas, but I needed something to supplement the coaching that I do, private training, and the journalism that I do, because living in New Jersey is just too expensive now. So I joined this. But I wanted to say this, two things. Number one, I'm working with my hat on, and the people really love it, and it's pretty cool. Customers are very friendly. And the other thing is, take pride in whatever job you do. No matter what it is, whether it's stacking shelves, or you're pumping gas, or you're a lawyer, or you're a doctor, or whatever it is, take pride in it. You're working, you're making money, you're independent, you're trying to make it in the world. It's a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. You know, so I just want to let everyone know I'm all right and what's going on with me, and I hope you guys are doing okay.
At this stage, he looked like a reasonable, energetic guy, filled with enthusiasm and positivity. Nobody watching back then could have guessed just how dark things would get. But Paul's fascination with politics and social commentary was already simmering beneath the surface. His videos often hinted at a growing obsession with telling the truth about social issues, and this passion eventually nudged him into self-styled journalism. He wasn't a mainstream reporter with credentials. Instead, he branded himself as an independent journalist who would simply show up at places, camera in hand, ready to expose the truth.
You guys want to talk about the what's it called, the banning of Republicans across the internet? You guys don't want to talk about any of that?
And to be fair, in the beginning, people were intrigued. His firm but polite confrontational style made him interesting to watch. He filmed himself storming into CNN headquarters with a giant microphone, accusing them of shady reporting.
CNN is fake news. They engaged in propaganda for 2 years against the American people. They need to be shut down. This place is a joke. And I'm here to tell you that you owe the American people an apology. I'm sorry, officer. I will leave. I will leave right now. I'll leave right now, officer. There's no problem. I don't want any trouble. I just had to say that.
He also went to Jeffrey Epstein's house, peppering a woman with blunt, uncomfortable questions.
Excuse me.
You don't know what's going on? What about all the women that have been through here?
I don't know.
What about all the women? What about Epstein Island?
These stunts earned him a small following of people who saw him as fearless and refreshingly raw, someone who wasn't afraid to say what others wouldn't. But here's the catch. This phase of his life didn't last. What started out as grassroots journalism slowly, almost invisibly, twisted into something much darker. The political commentary became sharper, more aggressive, and eventually crossed the line into outright extremism. Looking back now, it's almost unbelievable. The same guy who once posted motivational clips about hard work and discipline would later sit on Omegle in Joker makeup, ranting about race wars, doxing people, and spitting out some of the most vile rhetoric imaginable. So how did it all happen? How did Paul Miller transform from martial artist and aspiring journalist into the infamous Gypsy Crusader? To find that out, we need to rewind to a specific night, October 12, 2018. That's where the descent truly began. So Paul attended a political rally event in New York City that night, one that was hosted at the historic Metropolitan Republican Club in Manhattan. The event itself was already controversial before it even started. The guest speaker was Gavin McInnes, the co-founder of Vice Media, and more importantly here, the founder of the Proud Boys. For context, the Proud Boys are a far-right, male-only extremist group that McInnes himself once described as Western chauvinists. By this point in 2018, the group had already gained national attention for their street brawls, anti-left rhetoric, and open admiration for violence in defense of their politics. So when McInnes was scheduled to give a speech, tensions were bound to run high. Paul Miller, who would later be known online as Gypsy Crusader, showed up to the event not as a guest, but as an independent journalist. His goal was to film the speech, document the atmosphere, and broadcast it online to a small but growing audience.
Today, Gavin is having a meetup in New York, and the Proud Boys are going. And from what I understand, I believe Antifa is going to be there. So I am going to go, and I'm going to bring you guys coverage from it. I'm going to try to go live on Instagram for some of it. I will also be taking some video and putting it on YouTube, so it'll be a little bit of both. I hope you guys tune in and watch.
But the night didn't go according to his plan. First of all, he never even got inside the building. The club was at capacity and entry was denied. That left Paul stuck outside where the real action was already brewing. Outside the venue, a group of left-wing counter-protesters had gathered. Many of them identified as Antifa, a loosely organized movement of leftist activists known for directly confronting far-right groups like the Proud Boys. The energy outside was tense, hostile, and primed for confrontation even before McInnes had taken the stage indoors. Miller began recording what he saw, and from the footage he later shared online, it's clear that his style of reporting wasn't exactly neutral. He wasn't calmly documenting events like a detached observer. He was engaging, taunting, and in some moments, actively trying to provoke responses from Antifa members. At one point, a protester stormed up to him and smacked his camera out of his hand, an exchange that set the tone for what would follow.
On the other side, but they are there. I don't know if things are going to get violent. There's a heavy police presence.
Why do you hide your face? Why hide the face? No, you don't want to. All right. They don't want to ask. They don't want to ask any questions. What do you want?
I'll knock you out.
I was just recording. All I was doing was recording. Yes, sir. Officer, all I did was record. Officer, please, I didn't want to fight him. He got like this. I didn't know.
Now, to be fair here, Paul's videos did reveal his leanings. He wasn't disguising the fact that he tilted toward the far-right narrative. His framing, his commentary, and even the way he spoke to the counter-protesters made it obvious he sympathized with the Proud Boys more than with the people shouting them down. But, and this is important, having a political slant in your reporting doesn't mean you deserve to be violently attacked. And what happened next crossed that line entirely. Later that night, after recording for hours and dealing with the crowd outside the club, Paul decided to head home. He was walking through the streets of Manhattan with a female friend when, according to him, several Antifa members recognized him and followed. The situation escalated quickly.
So what happened tonight? I went out to the Antifa rally. I got into a fight, as you can see. It was about 10 of them and one of me. And it was absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. They robbed me as well. As I was fighting with them, I dropped my bag. In my bag, I had my wallet and my house keys. But I'm on the way home now. I tried to go there and get you guys some coverage. I'll put it on YouTube when I get back. It was a crazy experience, and I'm just happy that I'm okay. And there was a lot of people who saved my life today, and I just want to thank them.
Surveillance cameras later confirmed that Miller was surrounded, knocked to the ground, and beaten by a group of masked attackers. Paul himself would later say in interviews that there were about 10 people involved, and that the attack felt like it could have ended his life. The fight might have gotten even worse, if not for an unexpected intervention. 2 Proud Boys members allegedly stepped in during the altercation and pulled Paul out of the mob. He credited them with saving his life, saying the beating was so intense that the crowd's intention seemed to be more than just roughing him up. He felt they wanted to seriously injure, if not kill him. On top of the physical assault, Paul also claimed that his attackers stole his wallet and other belongings during the chaos. Whether you agree with Paul's politics or not, it's undeniable that what happened to him that night was violent, shocking, and completely unacceptable. Freedom of speech and freedom of the press, even biased press, doesn't come with a disclaimer that you can be jumped in the street if people dislike what you're saying. But the aftermath of this brawl is where the story gets even more complicated. The police quickly became involved, given the public nature of the fight and the mounting controversy around the event itself. Arrests were made, but here's the part that still raises eyebrows. None of the people accused of attacking Paul were ever convicted. Meanwhile, several Proud Boys members who had been caught on tape fighting with counter-protesters that same night did face serious consequences. In fact, 2 Proud Boys were later sentenced to multi-year prison terms for their role in the broader violence that unfolded after McGinnis' speech. So from Miller's perspective, and from the perspective of many who would later rally around him, there was a double standard. The far-right side faced convictions, while those who assaulted him directly walked free. Paul didn't stay silent after the incident. He went on his social media accounts and sat for interviews where he laid out his version of events in detail.
I'm here with Paul Miller, who was at the Metropolitan Republican Club the evening that Antifa disrupted the speech by Gavin McInnes and the Proud Boys. Now, Paul, thank you so much for joining One American News.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me.
You have a very unique story about what happened that night. Tell us about when you first went down to the club that night, what you saw.
It was just a crowd of about maybe 70, 80 Antifa members screaming and chanting and wild like animals out front of the Republican Club.
These protesters, did they have weapons on them?
I think they did, because they had the signs that they were chanting with, and the signs had like these big wood, like the sign was on itself. It was like this big wood piece. It's dangerous.
Like a 2x4 with something in it or something like that?
Yes, and then they had the sign on the top. You could have anything in there, a nail or something, you don't know.
We know this was a popular event for conservatives. Gavin McInnes, the founder of the Proud Boys, was speaking. He draws a lot of controversy across the nation when he speaks. You went to the event and couldn't get in. You were turned away. What happened then?
I was turned away from the event, and they sold out. So me and a friend, we was walking down the street and coming up 84th Street when we saw Antifa coming towards us. And as they were coming towards us, I knew that they were after us. I handed my phone to my friend. I told her to run. She said, "What about you?" I said, "Don't worry about me, you run." And she took off running down the street. 5 of them started to engage us. They tried to grab her. I grabbed him, pulled him back into the fight. I'm fighting with them. As I was fighting with them, I dropped my bag, and 5 more of them came. These are in black masks, in black clothes. They looked so scary, dangerous.
Now, just so our viewers know, Paul, you have a background in self-defense, correct?
Yes, I do. I studied and trained Muay Thai for 8 years. That's the only reason that I look like this, and I'm not all in a hospital someplace.
So tell me about what happened when you were in this fight then. Who came to your assistance? Who helped you?
As I ran away from them because there was too many, these 2 men who are heroes, Gavin and Jake, they literally, when other people would have walked away in the streets of New York, these 2 men sat there and helped me fight these guys. Gavin took one, Jake took one, and I took one. It was unbelievable. Something out of a movie.
And then the police came and arrested them, correct?
Yes. Thank God that the friend that I helped get away, she ran and got the cops, and the NYPD, God bless them, came in guns blazing, tackled them all to the ground. Then they got up. They started trying to assault the police officer, screaming at the police officer, screaming at me, I'm a Nazi.
He emphasized that he had been brutally attacked, nearly killed, and that he wasn't a Proud Boys member, despite what some people were starting to assume.
And you're not a member of the Proud Boys or a member of the Republican Club. You just went as a spectator to see it.
No, I'm not a member of the Proud Boys. I know them, but I'm not a member, and I'm not a member of the Republican Club there. I'm a Republican committee, but not there, and I just went there to see.
Paul Miller, you're very lucky. Thank you so much for telling One American News what happened.
Thank you guys for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
This clarification became necessary because in the public's mind, Paul Miller being rescued by Proud Boys blurred the line between independent journalist and participant in the far-right scene. And even though he repeatedly denied ever being a member, the association stuck with him in ways he probably didn't anticipate. In the months that followed after the New York altercation, Paul Miller alleged that he faced the worst kind of harassment imaginable at the hands of Antifa members and Black Lives Matter activists. During one of his live sessions, he claimed that ever since the October 12th incident, people from the left had repeatedly doxed him, dug into his personal information, and even written articles labeling him as a dangerous extremist.
Like, why am I seeing you on TikTok? Like what happened? What? I've never seen. Like, what happened to you?
Black Lives Matter and Antifa destroyed my life. They ruined my life.
Why? How?
Proud Boys, Antifa attacked me. They tried to kill me. I had them arrested. What's it called? The DA basically let them go throughout the case. They then doxed me. They got me fired. They harassed me. Then after that happened, they harassed me more. I had the FBI sent to my house.
According to Paul, this relentless exposure had real-world consequences. He lost jobs, lost friends, and quickly found himself unable to rebuild a normal life. What makes this whole situation more striking is that Paul's transformation into Gypsy Crusader can be directly traced back to this period. He launched his channel in late 2018, right after the altercation with Antifa and the Proud Boys melee outside the Metropolitan Republican Club. In his own words, the combination of being physically assaulted and then seeing the justice system fail to convict those who attacked him was the breaking point. He decided it as the moment he became woke, but not in the modern progressive sense. Instead, Paul says he turned bitter, resentful, and began cultivating an obsessive hatred of minority groups, openly admitting later that he started hating black people, Jews, and virtually anyone outside his perceived in-group.
The district attorney did everything that he could to basically give them no charges. I came in, I gave them statements. I had 4 witnesses give them statements. The 2 guys that was fighting with them, a taxi cab driver that saw the whole fight. Okay? So I gave them all the evidence that I could to the district attorney. Everything for them to arrest these guys and put them away. The district attorney let them go. They said that I didn't give them enough information for them to press charges on them. It was insane. I gave them video. I gave them pictures. I gave them witness statements. I gave them everything. Everything that they needed. So after all of that, that is why I became so radical. That is why I want these niggers and these Jews and these communists to face the wall. I'm done with them. I don't want to talk anymore. There's no more debate. All right? There's no more, yeah, let's talk it out. Yeah, let's give them some rights. Them.
His bitterness came into full display in 2020 during the George Floyd protests and the New York riots. That summer was an extremely sensitive and volatile time in the United States, with nationwide demonstrations against police brutality, counter-protests, and violent clashes erupting almost daily. Paul attended several of these rallies with his camera, filming and streaming his encounters. One of his clips in particular went viral, showing damaged property, with Paul providing commentary that directly blamed Black Lives Matter activists for destroying the country.
Damage is extensive. This thing, it's like every other block is just wrecked. As you can see here, the left do not like CNN either. Destroy CNN. I have some pretty good helmet cam footage. I've just had to put it on and walk because I've never seen it like this. Even after 9/11, it wasn't like this. But I'm gonna start heading home because train's coming. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I have so many pictures. I'm gonna post them really soon. All right. Thank you guys for watching. The mainstream media is not showing the American people the damage the left-wing mob
can do to the United States. It is disgusting, all right? Those people are animals. They are not protesters. They're rioters, okay? They're domestic terrorists, and they need to be stopped. This was disgusting. Thank you guys for watching.
To his growing online audience on Telegram and streaming sites, this was proof of his bravery and authenticity. But to his critics, it was more evidence of his radicalization. Left-leaning publications later reported that Paul was not merely observing these protests, but actively harassing demonstrators. According to these reports, he shouted inflammatory slurs, mocked protesters, and at one point allegedly yelled phrases like "Heil Hitler," "Black Lives Don't Matter," and even derogatory terms like "chimp" at female protesters.
Can someone explain to me how it is that these Black Lives Matter Antifa people think they have a right to protest? They don't have a right to protest. They have a right to nothing. Right? They're communist insurgents. They want to overthrow our system. They advocate for tearing up the Constitution and overthrowing the American system. Then, in the same breath, sit there and say they have a right to protest under the First Amendment. You want to destroy the First Amendment. You want to rip up the Constitution. How dare you sit there and say you want to hide behind it and protest? You have a right to nothing. Nothing. They are communist insurgents, and that's how they should be treated. They not even peaceful protest. They have a right to nothing. Not to assemble, not to get together, nothing. They are not even American citizens anymore as far as I'm concerned. The second that they started to advocate for overthrowing everything and replacing it with a communist system, they've lost all that right. They're done.
Only white lives matter. Only white, yeah, I am. Hail Hitler. Lives don't matter. Lives don't matter, you black.
From that point on, the harassment he claimed to face intensified. Paul insisted that BLM activists and Antifa organizers made it their mission to ruin his life. He alleged they repeatedly doxed him, posting his private information online and contacting his employers. At the time, Paul was working at a gas station and also doing side work as a personal trainer at a gym. According to him, both jobs were lost after employers began receiving threatening phone calls and messages demanding that he be fired.
I get Qurans sent to my house. To my apartment. To my house. I was living with my family at the time. And, fucking, what's it called? Oh, I was working at a gas station for a little, like, a while after it happened. I was working at a gas station, and I was doing my personal training stuff, right? They called the gas station, and they wanted the gas station to fire me. They said I'm a Nazi and all this other shit, blah, 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 right? They found out where I worked. For 7 years. Calls me up and tells me, Paul, your views are too extreme. You've been way too out there lately. We can't have you at the gym anymore. Now, this is like the coronavirus, so all the gyms are closed. So he goes, when the gyms open up again, we don't want you back. What's it called? We don't want you back, and you're just, don't take it personal, blah, blah, blah.
Not only that, his family was also dragged into the chaos. Paul has repeatedly recounted a disturbing episode where a group of activists showed up outside his mother's home chanting "Black Lives Matter." His mother, who ran a small tarot card business, was allegedly threatened by the crowd. Paul claims that they even threatened to burn her house down after she made the remark, "Black lives don't matter, all lives matter."
Okay? Now, before they even go to my mom's house, they're calling my mother on her phone, on her business line, saying they're going to burn her house down, they're going to kill her, she's a racist white, all this shit. Okay? All of this shit. Then finally they go to the house. They go to the house. They start screaming at my mom, say Black Lives Matter. My mom was like, I'm not going to say Black Lives Matter because all lives matter. And I'm a spiritualist, and I believe that all lives matter because I believe in Jesus. This is what my mother said to this mob of nigger zombies outside my mother and father's house.
Those sympathetic to Paul used this story as an example of political intimidation and mob harassment. On the other side, however, left-wing accounts suggest a different version. They argue that a march was simply passing by, and that Paul's mother came outside shouting, "All lives matter," escalating the situation herself. Paul also alleged that these same groups tipped off law enforcement, bringing even more trouble his way. While the FBI raid that made national headlines happened in 2021, he says that in 2020, federal agents already paid him a visit in what can be described as a knock and talk. This was not a raid, but an early warning. Agents questioning him about his online activities, his growing extremist rhetoric, and his role during the 2020 protests.
The DA basically let them go throughout the case. They then doxed me, they got me fired, they harassed me. Then after that happened, they harassed me more. I had the FBI sent to my house.
And the FBI certainly had reason to be concerned. By this point, Paul had fully leaned into spreading anti-black, anti-Semitic, and conspiratorial content. He was openly arguing that the George Floyd protests were illegitimate, calling them an excuse for chaos rather than a cry for justice. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. While most people, regardless of political affiliation, would disagree with Paul's toxic and dangerous ideology, that does not mean the response he faced was justified. Online harassment, doxing, getting someone fired from their livelihood, or threatening their family is not a solution, it's an escalation. In Paul's case, those retaliations arguably drove him even deeper into radicalization. When people describe Gypsy Crusader as a real-life joker, they don't just mean because of his clown persona on streams. They're pointing to a man who, in his telling, was beaten, abandoned by the justice system, ostracized by society, and pushed into extremism by what he saw as an endless cycle of harassment. So in 2020, after losing his job, his lifelong passion, his reputation online, and literally everything, he truly entered a darker territory and started acting all mad and insane on the internet. This is the time when the true Gypsy Crusader era started. This was the breaking point when the bitterness fully took over and the mask of sanity slipped. From here on out, he wasn't just Paul Miller anymore. This was the birth of the Gypsy Crusader, the unhinged, madcap persona who thrived on chaos and rage.
Yeah, you would abuse your power because what about freedom of speech? What about the First Amendment? I guess maybe you didn't read that part of the Constitution when you took your oath.
Okay.
I'm having fun. You know, I like this job. I like it.
You like it?
I do. I really do. To stop me kicking someone's ass or something like that, right? I will take it from you and bury it up your ass, and there won't be a thing that you would be able to do to stop me.
When Paul Miller reinvented himself as Gypsy Crusader, the internet got a front row seat to one of the most bizarre and disturbing transformations in online history. No longer just Paul, he became a man who lived behind costumes, makeup, and grotesque personas. One day he was the Joker, painted face and all.
The fight of their lives is coming, and it's upon us.
Another day he was the Riddler, sneering through a green suit.
I'm a fraction of the population, but I commit half the crimes. Who am I?
The Joker?
And sometimes, just for shock value, he would show up as Super Mario. Though this Mario wasn't saving princesses. He was insulting anyone who showed up on Omegle just for fun.
Mario!
Mario wants to know, why are you so fat?
Why are you fat, Mario?
I am not the fat. I go on the diet and I lose a lot of weight.
This was his stage, a live stream battlefield where Paul could unleash every unfiltered thought in his head and millions of strangers could tune in. He didn't just want to make jokes or rile people up. He wanted to shock, to offend, to disturb. And the more outrageous and offensive he became, the more people started watching. From the very beginning of his Gypsy Crusader era, Paul made no secret of his beliefs. He openly talked about a coming race-based civil war in America. He said it bluntly, "It's coming and I'm preparing for it." He bragged about stockpiling weapons and ammunition, presenting himself as some kind of soldier waiting for a war, only he seemed eager to fight. His targets were clear: Jews, Black Americans, immigrants, Muslims, the LGBTQ community, and essentially anyone who didn't fit his warped worldview. He didn't just criticize, he dehumanized, he mocked, he fantasized about their destruction.
Wow, you're really ugly.
My name is Paul Miller. People know me as Gypsy Crusader. I hate niggers, I hate and I hate Jews.
Perhaps the most chilling of all his references was to the neo-Nazi idea of the Day of the Rope. For those unfamiliar, the Day of the Rope is a concept pulled straight out of the white supremacist novel The Turner Diaries, written by neo-Nazi leader William Pierce. In this fictional scenario, white extremists take over California and begin mass lynchings of anyone they consider a race traitor. Politicians, journalists, interracial couples, anyone who doesn't fit their genocidal vision. Paul didn't just reference this concept once in passing. He regularly invoked it on his streams, often while dressed as the Joker, grinning through face paint as he casually talked about violence.
I cannot wait. I can't wait. There's gonna be a day. So help me God, I pray. I just want to see it in my lifetime. Please, God, that we take those people that talk like that, that act like that, that think they're so tough. They think they're so bad.
If that wasn't enough, Paul repeatedly praised Hitler, brandished Nazi symbols like the swastika, the SS bolts, and the Celtic cross, and denied the Holocaust outright. On Omegle streams, he would seek out Jewish strangers and throw some of the vilest statements imaginable at them. But it wasn't a joke. These weren't offhanded, edgy comments. They were part of a larger extremist worldview he proudly embraced. It didn't start at this intensity. In his early days, Paul's rants against Jews and black people seemed sporadic, more like provocations than doctrine. But over time, he escalated. What started as shock value became normal for him. Hate speech became his everyday vocabulary. He no longer needed provocation. Hatred was simply who he was becoming.
On a screen, so I mean, that's fine.
Yeah? What's your point?
That I can't do anything about it.
What's your relationship like with your father?
What's yours like?
Great. I love my father. My father's
Are
great.
you Joker?
Yes, I am.
Your dad's dad.
My dad is alive and well in Gotham. So,
As his streams continued, Paul's targets expanded. First, it was black and Jewish communities. Then it became immigrants, then Muslims, then women, then the gay community. Eventually, no one was safe from his rants. He even started fat-shaming strangers online, spewing venom at people who simply existed on the other side of his webcam. This wasn't just online roleplay, it spilled into real life. There were documented instances where Paul confronted people of color in person, disrespecting them openly, even calling them racial slurs to their faces.
You have in the wrong neighborhood? How about we kick your right now? How about if we kick right now? Yeah. How about we beat your right now?
However, one of the most dangerous chapters in Paul's online activity came in the form of Project Mayhem. This wasn't just Paul streaming for attention. This was organized harassment. Project Mayhem was essentially a doxing network. Paul built a community of nearly 40,000 followers on Telegram, and many of them actively participated in targeting people, mainly minorities, journalists, or anyone Paul personally disliked. He would share private information, encourage raids, and urge his followers to harass these people. This wasn't speech anymore, this was coordinated abuse. And yet, despite the severity of what he was doing, many people still brushed it off as just some guy online in Joker makeup. At this point, a big question arises. Why did people even like him? Here's where things get complicated. For every person horrified by Paul's actions, there were others who found him entertaining. Between 2020 and 2021, his viewership grew dramatically. But it wasn't because people thought he was logical or politically sharp. No, they tuned in because he was chaos personified. Think about it. A man dressed as the Joker, screaming the most unhinged things into a webcam, that's instant meme material. For younger audiences especially, this was funny in the same way that watching someone lose their mind in real time can be funny. The internet thrives on chaos, and Paul provided chaos in spades. For many viewers, he was never a political figure. He was content. Pure, deranged, shock value content. But then there was another side of his audience, the sympathizers. These people genuinely saw Paul as a victim of society. In their minds, he was a man who had everything taken from him, his career, his passion, his reputation. They believed his radical turn was justified, that his pain had been caused by the system, and his hate was just a natural reaction. To them, Paul wasn't a villain. He was a tragic anti-hero. And finally, there was the third group, the most dangerous one. The alt-right and white supremacist communities didn't just watch Paul for entertainment. They actually liked him. They amplified his streams and even assisted in his harassment campaigns. Many of these individuals actively engaged in Project Mayhem, helping Paul target victims, spread propaganda, and normalize extremist rhetoric. For them, Paul wasn't just a chaotic meme. He was a mouthpiece. He was proof that their hateful ideology could find a home on the internet and attract thousands of followers. When you put all this together, Paul Miller's Gypsy Crusader era becomes more than just a bizarre story about a man in Joker makeup. It becomes a case study in radicalization, online extremism, and the dangerous blending of entertainment with hate speech. He blurred the line between character and belief, between shock value and propaganda. And the result was a toxic online persona that for a brief moment in time captured the attention of thousands. But the kind of rhetoric Paul was spreading online often comes with extreme repercussions, and Paul wasn't immune to them. At the very moment when he was gaining traction by spewing hate speech, taunting left-wing groups, and cementing himself as a bizarre meme, he was also violating nearly every community guideline written into social media law. It wasn't a matter of if he'd been banned, but when. And eventually the hammer came down. YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, all the mainstream platforms slammed their doors shut on him one by one. With nowhere else to go, Paul slithered into the darker corners of the internet, finding refuge on fringe platforms like Telegram, BitChute, and Odyssey. On Telegram specifically, he rebuilt his following, amassing over 40,000 loyal subscribers who ate up his unfiltered rants. Even when he wasn't streaming live, his Omegle clips and racist tirades resurfaced across the web, keeping his notoriety alive. But notoriety doesn't go unnoticed. As his digital circus grew, so did the eyes watching him. Law enforcement, anti-extremist watchdogs, and eventually the FBI all began paying attention, quietly gathering evidence. Paul might have thought he was untouchable in his Joker makeup, laughing at the chaos he created, but the reality was closing in on him. And in March of 2021, the curtain finally fell. The man who once called himself Gypsy Crusader, the internet's deranged clown, would be dragged out of his stage and into the harsh spotlight of the justice system. And we'll tell you exactly how it happened.
I'm in Fort Lauderdale at 1400 Southwest 6th Street. Our crew is on the scene, so let's go ahead and check in with NBC6's Amanda Placencia live with us now, bringing us the latest. Amanda, what have you been able to confirm about what's happening here?
Well, Roxy, we just got the information seconds ago from the FBI that 32-year-old Paul Miller of Fort Lauderdale was arrested for allegedly being a convicted felon in possession of a firearm. And let me show you what we're looking at.
So the first organization to take notice of Paul's actions was the Anti-Defamation League, ADL. Among those watching was Carla Hill, an investigator who had been tracking extremist activity online for years. By the fall of 2020, Paul's bizarre clown persona and increasingly violent rhetoric had made their way to her desk. She began monitoring his streams on Telegram, the place where Paul felt most untouchable. It didn't take long for Carla to realize what she was dealing with. After just a month of following his content, she concluded that Paul was a big, giant red flag dressed as a clown. To NJ News, she explained the scale of her concern. If you start checking off 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes, then it's concerning. And Paul checked every box. Carla compiled a detailed report for the FBI, documenting what she saw as a man spiraling deeper into radical extremism. She noted how his online following had become his entire identity, and how he seemed emboldened by each new stream. She didn't just call him unhinged, she warned federal agents that his rhetoric was escalating in a way that made him genuinely dangerous. She particularly highlighted one live session where Paul brandished firearms directly into the camera. She described Paul as increasingly radical and flagged his obsession with violence as a pressing threat. Her report didn't stop there. Carla also flagged his grotesque behavior on Omegle, where he would show up in costume and unleash streams of racist abuse on random strangers. One particularly disturbing moment came when he sneered at a black woman, saying, "Mario hates Black Lives Matter." That stream, chaotic, vile, and disturbing, turned out to be his final one, because the very next morning, Paul was arrested by the FBI. By the time Carla's first report had reached the Bureau, Paul had already fled New Jersey and relocated to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He seemed to believe that changing states would somehow put him out of reach. On one of his streams, he even bragged that in Florida he could supposedly shoot people without consequence.
I'm fine, Ma. If anything happens to me, it's my fate. Ma, I mean, I'm in Florida, Ma. There's another, what are they gonna? They can't do things here like they would back home. Because here we could shoot them. We could shoot them.
Oh my God.
But what Paul didn't know was that Carla had passed along her findings to the FBI's Florida division. And on the morning of March 2nd, 2021, the illusion of invincibility shattered. Federal agents closed in, ending the Gypsy Crusader's online reign in the same abrupt, chaotic fashion it had begun.
Now to the breaking news out of Fort Lauderdale at the top of the show. The FBI says it has made an arrest. 32-year-old Paul Miller of Fort Lauderdale was taken into custody without incident. They say he had a firearm as a convicted felon. Miller is expected to have an initial appearance in Fort Lauderdale federal court. More on this story later.
So whatever racist and extremist things Paul Miller was saying on the internet were not illegal. The First Amendment, after all, protects even the most vile speech, unless it explicitly crosses into threats or incitement. But there was one area of his life that went far beyond speech: firearms. And for someone like Paul, a convicted felon, even the mere possession of a weapon was a federal crime. That distinction would ultimately become his downfall. Not many people realize this, but Paul had a history with the law long before his internet infamy. Back in 2006, when he was just 18, he was arrested and charged with aggravated assault. A year later, in 2007, he found himself in trouble again, this time for drug possession with intent to distribute. He served 180 days behind bars and was placed on probation for 4 years. Fast forward a decade, and Paul hadn't entirely stayed away from trouble. In 2018, he was once again charged with firearm possession, but prosecutors ultimately did not indict him. Still, at that point, it should have been crystal clear to him. As a convicted felon, he could not legally or illegally possess firearms. Yet by 2020 and early 2021, as his Gypsy Crusader persona spiraled deeper into radical rhetoric, he continued flashing weapons during live streams on Omegle, Telegram, and fringe platforms, almost daring the authorities to take notice. That moment came on March 2nd, 2021, when the FBI raided his home in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. When the FBI agents moved in at 5 a.m., Paul allegedly told them that he only had the weapons for self-defense. He claimed that thousands of people were harassing him daily, that left-wing activists were threatening him, and that he had no choice but to protect himself. But federal law didn't care about his explanations. As an ex-felon in possession of firearms, his case was airtight. At trial, Paul's defense lawyers attempted to paint him as a man under siege, someone who had been harassed and canceled to the point of paranoia. They urged that he wasn't planning an attack, but was simply afraid for his life. Paul himself asked the judge to let him go home with an ankle monitor, promising to stay offline and out of trouble. But the judge wasn't convinced. Given Paul's history, his rhetoric about civil war and violence, and the stockpile of weapons, the court ruled he was too much of a risk. Initially, media reports suggested Paul might face up to 30 years in prison, which caused panic among his followers and smug satisfaction among his critics. While some believed the sentence would be fair for someone so openly extremist, others felt it was harsh, punishing him more for his speech than for the firearms charge itself. To his supporters, this became another example of the system failing him. Many people started speaking out on the internet in his support. Behind bars, Paul reportedly told someone over the phone that if things went well, he expected to serve only 18 months. That phone call, however, was recorded and later used against him by prosecutors.
If everything
everything goes well, I'll serve around 18 months if everything goes okay.
To make matters worse, during a Zoom hearing, a streamer managed to infiltrate the session and record Paul's interaction, which was then spread online. Even from jail, Paul couldn't escape harassment from those who wanted to see him humiliated.
I believe that I'll probably serve, if everything goes well, I'll serve around 18 months if everything goes okay. It's scary, dude. I have to go. They're going to send me to prison. You know, there's nothing I could do about it. You know, I'm not looking at that much time that they're saying, like, there's no 10 years, there's no 20 years, there's no 30 years. Like, it's none of that. Don't get me wrong. They did threaten me with all that stuff. They did. And I was really scared for a while. I haven't slept much. I haven't ate much. I've lost, like, over 35 pounds in here.
When his sentencing finally came down in September 2021, the court handed him 41 months in federal prison, just over 3 years. According to courtroom accounts, Paul was visibly shaken, even breaking down in tears as he left the stand. But if anyone thought that was the end of the Gypsy Crusader era, they were wrong. Even from prison, Paul stayed in contact with his most loyal fans. Through voice memos, he kept his persona alive, urging his followers to stay inspired by his journey.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have missed you all so much. I'm live to hear from you from Arkham. I wanted to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'm trying to get out of here as soon as I can. But as you know, the cops have plans. You know, they're schemers. Schemers trying to control their little worlds. I am not a schemer. I try to show the schemers how pathetic their attempts to control things really are.
What's up, everybody? It's your old pal, Gypsy Crusader. Yeah, I'm still, unfortunately, in the belly of the beast down here. I'm still in jail, if anyone was curious. And I just want to tell you all how much I miss you. And I hear everything that's going on every once in a while, and I appreciate so much the support and the love, and I appreciate the prayers. And it's a crazy time in my life, guys. It's a really horrible time, but I'm thankful so much for all of you. And I hope all of you are doing great. The holiday seasons are coming up, Christmas, you know, and all that stuff. Please be with your families, love one another. I'm not going to be with my family for the holidays this year. So I want all of you to really appreciate the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween, all of those things. Be with your family, love each other, love your mom, love your dad, you know, be close with them, you know, your brothers, your sisters, and have a relationship with God. You know, through God, all things are possible. I've had a lot of blessings in here. I pray all the time. And I hope that my little bit of suffering in here, you know, inspires you all to not take things for granted and, you know, enjoy your freedom, enjoy your family, enjoy walking down the street and feeling the sun on your face. Enjoy all those things and never, ever take it for granted. And I pray that I'm back with all of you very soon. And I love you all so much. God bless you guys. Bye.
In the end, Paul didn't serve the full 41 months. Thanks to good behavior, he was released in January 2023, having spent just 2 years behind bars. For someone who once positioned himself as a soldier in an online civil war, he walked free much earlier than many expected. But here's the catch. Even after getting released from prison, Paul Miller did not exactly walk free. The authorities still considered him a volatile figure, someone who could spiral back into extremism at any given moment. Because of that, he was placed under federal supervision through the Residential Reentry Management Network. Think of it as a halfway point between prison and total freedom. It was essentially home confinement. He had to follow strict rules. His internet access was limited, and his activities were closely monitored. Still, it wasn't prison anymore, which meant he could once again interact online and slowly dip his toes back into streaming.
This is really neat. I'm sorry, I must look terrible, but it's been a long 2 years. I mean, a year of solitary confinement and just a lot of shit. But there's a lot that I want to say. I just don't have the time at the moment to say it. But we'll get the show back running, and laugh and joke again. I can't wait. And you guys got me through it.
Yeah, it's been a really, really tough 2 years. I'm sure I probably look it. I know I'm not looking my best. Sorry. Alright. So yeah, as you can see, I'm still in like a weird thing. It's a halfway house. I'm not in jail. Because you can't have phones in jail. This is the craziness that I'm living in right now. I have to wait until I go on home confinement, and when I get on home confinement, I will be able to work on the stream.
Great news. I'm on house arrest. This is the moment that I've been waiting for a long time. This is like a big step to being just totally done with all of this shit. So now I'll be able to stream pretty soon. I'm so happy.
Many observers thought that after serving nearly 2 years behind bars, his outlook might have changed. Perhaps the time in confinement would have made him reflect, mellow out, or even abandon his extremist persona altogether. But if people were expecting redemption, they were quickly disappointed. The moment Miller started streaming again, he made it crystal clear that prison had not softened him. In fact, he openly confessed to his followers that he had come out more radical than ever.
I'm making a comeback, guys. It's good to be back.
What was it like in there, bro? Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm all right. I'm a little bit more, how would you say, radical now than I was when I went in. But beyond that...
At first, his comeback was subtle. He spent the early weeks after release reconnecting with his loyal fan base, chatting about his prison experience, and clarifying rumors that had circulated while he was away.
Like, Virginia's like not even trying to be rude. What is your point on doing this? Like, everyone has a point and stuff, but like, what is your point?
My point is that I am tired of the politically correct society that we live in. That if you say things that are deemed offensive, you are canceled and or, have your life destroyed. And well, I was going to Walmart to buy my mailers to mail patches out. I wasn't doing anything wrong, and they came in and just blew my house up. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. It had not, dude. The ADL was all over the FBI, forcing them, telling them, "Oh, he's getting more and more extreme with his rhetoric, and you gotta shut him down." And then the FBI is sitting there like, "All right, you know what? We're just gonna go ahead and ruin this guy's life." I never saw myself as a criminal, like not even a little bit.
He painted himself as a misunderstood figure, a victim of government outreach, and even portrayed his imprisonment as a kind of heroic sacrifice. Once he had reestablished his bond with the audience, the old persona crept back in. Soon enough, he was back on Telegram and other fringe platforms, dressing up as the Joker, brandishing swastikas, spewing racial slurs, and reenacting the exact same hate-fueled antics that had gotten him locked up in the first place.
No! Guys, look! It's the Joker!
Why do you have that in the background? Why?
No! Batman's coming for you. I'm coming for you, actually.
No, I'm pretty sure that Batgirl is white. She's not some half-nick...
But there was one big difference this time. Paul wasn't just playing a role for shock value, he was monetizing it. Behind the clown makeup and racist tirades, he was quietly running what looked like a hate-branded merchandise business. He began selling signed posters of himself, Joker patches, and even hats and t-shirts adorned with Nazi symbols like the swastika. Even more alarming was how much financial support he began to receive from fans, trolls, and far-right sympathizers. According to a USA Today investigation, Miller received over $5,000 in cryptocurrency donations during the short window of time he was out. The article quotes Megan Squire, Deputy Director for Data Analytics at the Southern Poverty Law Center, who had been monitoring Miller's financial activities. He just did like 500 withdrawals, one after the other. It was kind of nuts. It was many, many hundreds of dollars. The shocking part? He was doing all of this while still technically under federal confinement. Both the FBI and the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, were aware of his activities and keeping tabs on him, but Miller was careful enough to continue pushing boundaries without crossing the line into an immediate new charge. What truly unnerved investigators and watchdog groups was that Miller didn't just pick up where he left off, he escalated. He resurrected his online extremist network known as Project Mayhem, but this time with ambitions that were far darker and more organized. Originally, Project Mayhem had been a chaotic trolling network he launched in 2019, designed to harass minorities online and flood digital spaces with hate. But in its second iteration, it became something more methodical. He spent months after his release cultivating a tight-knit community on Telegram. Slowly but surely, his following swelled to around 40,000 members, a significant increase compared to his earlier reach. Within this group, Miller started actively recruiting people with the goal of coordinating online raids targeting Black communities, Jewish users, and other minorities. His messaging was clear. He wasn't just an entertainer anymore. He saw himself as a movement leader, someone uniting fringe extremists under a banner of chaos and hate. The resurrection of Project Mayhem showed that his ideology had hardened rather than faded, and he was determined to push it even further. USA Today launched a full-blown investigation into Gypsy Crusader's Project Mayhem, bringing forward numerous screenshots that highlighted exactly how the operation was running during that time.
Racism, anti-LGBTQ sentiment, and neo-Nazism continue to thrive in online forums that sanction hate speech. That includes the latest, a channel on Telegram called Project Mayhem. I spoke with USA Today national correspondent for extremism and emerging issues, Will Carless, to learn more. Will, thanks for hopping on the show.
Always a pleasure.
How did you first hear about Project Mayhem?
So part of my job is to just keep an eye on certain people and groups. And I do that mainly by monitoring spaces online, places that most people wouldn't like to spend a lot of time.
They revealed that Paul wasn't just ranting online, he was orchestrating a full-scale hate campaign, directing coordinated harassment raids on people he disliked or simply wanted to bully. On his tightly controlled Telegram channel, Miller and his followers openly shared personal information about targets, including their names, emails, addresses, and phone numbers. Members were then urged to infiltrate social media feeds and private DMs with waves of hate messages, racial slurs, and direct threats.
Places that most people wouldn't like to spend a lot of time. In fact, I don't really like spending a lot of time there, but it's part of my job. I don't know how many of the listeners are familiar with Telegram, but it works a little bit like Twitter. And that's when I first heard about this Telegram channel we're going to talk about today. Every couple of days, I'll go and take a look and see what the neo-Nazis and white supremacists and other nasty groups are talking about. And I saw they were all talking about this thing called Project Mayhem.
Will, what is Project Mayhem? What are we talking about here?
Project Mayhem's essentially a Telegram channel where a group of people, there's about 1,500 followers, someone will go on there and post what they call a raid, which is essentially targeting someone. It could be an individual, it could be a business, it's usually an individual, and they will say things like, go and bully this person, go and make their lives a misery, go and, if it's a business, go and ruin all of their reviews online, their Google reviews, Yelp reviews, that sort of thing. If it's an individual, then bombard them with phone calls and hateful voice messages and hateful direct messages on social media. And that indeed has happened. I've spoken to several of the victims who were just absolutely bombarded with hateful messages, white supremacist slogans, images for at least a few days at a time, really made their lives miserable and really upset them, in addition to affecting people's businesses. It's not a very nice group of people, and they're sort of actively engaged in these targeted hate campaigns.
The campaign wasn't limited to anonymous trolling. It was highly targeted and devastating. One of the victims, a business owner from San Diego who co-founded Restrained Grace, a company selling jewelry, gifts, and fetish gear, suddenly found herself at the center of Project Mayhem's attacks. Because her online profile used the term Antifa, she became an immediate target. She described what happened. I suddenly started getting dozens of hate-filled direct messages on social media. The messages poured in, telling me to kill myself, sending death threats as well as 88, a white supremacist term that stands for Heil Hitler. For this victim, identified as Nygaard, the psychological toll was immense. It was distressing, she said. I already have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, so logging on to all that hate is just triggering in general. The USA Today article also brought forward other disturbing testimonies. Further north, in Sacramento, California, Uneke, a drag queen who performs at an all-ages drag show, was bombarded in a similar fashion. Hate messages, racial slurs, and violent threats became an everyday occurrence. She said, "I was getting photos sent to me of like white power. People saying that my day of the rope will come. People sending like monkey emojis and stuff like that. Mostly just racist remarks." Screenshots from the channel backed these claims. One post from April 3rd chillingly read, "Let's show this what real white boys are like." Another from April 2nd went even further, spewing the N-word and declaring that their targets would hang from this theoretical treehouse. On March 30th, the channel commanded its members to bully this Antifa before launching into more slurs. These examples illustrate that Project Mayhem was not some fringe joke. It was a coordinated hate network, weaponizing anonymity to unleash waves of harassment on unsuspecting individuals, and the scale was growing. At its peak, Miller's Telegram channel amassed tens of thousands of followers, with more than 15,000 people engaged in this cycle of hate. Since USA Today was investigating Miller and his online activities so closely, they eventually contacted the Bureau of Prisons to ask about his apparent freedom to spew hate online while still under federal confinement. Shockingly, officials admitted they had no idea about his online rhetoric until it was brought to their attention. Once they became aware, they acted swiftly. Authorities couldn't arrest Miller directly for a speech protected under the First Amendment, but they could hold him accountable for violating the terms of his release, which restricted online streaming. That technicality was enough. He was taken back into federal custody and forced to complete the remainder of his sentence, spending an additional 77 days in prison.
As of about 10 minutes ago, I was informed by Paul that Gypsy was violated for streaming online content.
Are there any stipulations on you posting or being online or anything like that?
Yeah. I'm sure they would have loved to do that, but they couldn't.
He was brought back to the halfway house and then taken to jail. He will be remaining in jail for the next 77 days until he finishes out his time.
The move caused waves among his followers, who blamed USA Today for exposing him. Miller himself echoed this narrative after his release in July 2023, claiming the newspaper pressured the Bureau of Prisons into detaining him again. According to him, nothing in his release documents explicitly prohibited from streaming online.
Oh, so all right. So what they sent me back for was they said that I posted propaganda and hateful content on the internet. That's what they said. But it's not part of my terms of release. There was nothing in my paper, nothing at all, nothing. So what they did was just, because USA Today basically put pressure on them, the BOP, and then the BOP instead of...
But regardless of the legal technicalities, the evidence of Project Mayhem's harassment spree was undeniable. During the time he was detained again, the Project Mayhem channel disappeared from the platform, and so did Gypsy Crusader's Telegram. So now that he's out and about, we had to dig a little deeper to find out what life has really been like for him after his release. Many of the existing documentary-style videos on YouTube cover Paul only up until the time he was behind bars, with most of them cutting off around July 2023 when he finally walked out of prison. This leaves a big gap in the narrative of his story, as there isn't a lot of concrete mainstream coverage about what exactly he's been up to since then. That uncertainty is what makes it so fascinating to track him down online now, trying to piece together his new chapter from the crumbs scattered across Telegram, alternative streaming platforms, and the occasional Reddit discussion. When we researched online, we discovered that his current situation is far from the carefree, unrestricted lifestyle that he used to flaunt before his arrest. He's now on a very tight leash. Even though he's technically free and allowed to use the internet again, he's still under 3 full years of federal supervision. This probationary period will last until 2026, assuming everything goes smoothly, and that neither he nor the people around him stir up fresh drama that might land him back in serious trouble. This supervision essentially means that while Miller can move around and communicate, there are strict guidelines in place, and any misstep could carry heavy consequences. The shadow of federal oversight follows him everywhere, making this new chapter of his life much less reckless than the chaotic pre-arrest persona he was known for.
Going good?
Why are you dressed like the Joker?
Why? Well, first of all, I'm not dressed like him. This is just my everyday garb. I am Joker. But what I'm coming on here to do is mostly to spread the truth. Do you guys want to hear some truth? Some shocking facts?
Sure.
Yeah? Prime. that goes on in the United States. How do you feel about it?
Wait, pause. Can you re-say that again?
Are you going to record it and post it online? I really hope you do.
No, I just didn't.
No, I don't care if you do. I want you to.
I just didn't.
However, we can't say his time out of prison has been entirely drama-free. Despite the supervision, he continues to communicate with strangers online, still slipping in racist remarks here and there, although in a noticeably less frequent and toned-down manner compared to his heyday. It's clear he's pulled back significantly from the over-the-top shock value antics that once made him a viral, albeit highly controversial figure. Some of the articles we skimmed even suggest that Miller has shifted his focus from relentlessly harassing random people to instead ranting about government overreach and pivoting towards selling what he brands as free speech merchandise. This change in direction almost feels like a rebranding attempt, an effort to keep his far-right audience entertained without crossing the same legal lines that previously landed him in prison.
Yes or no? By welfare, that means my tax money has to be given to you because you people are too bit to take care of yourselves. This is not my opinion. This is the truth. I'm sorry it's a hard...
His following on Telegram, which was once his most powerful platform, has shrunk dramatically. Back in the height of his notoriety, Miller commanded an audience of around 42,000 subscribers. Today that number has dropped to roughly 20,000, a significant decline that shows how much his influence has faded. He also started posting more frequently on smaller fringe platforms like Rumble and GoMTV, spaces that cater to audiences who still seek out his style of content. We managed to stumble upon a few of his recent clips on these sites, and while they carry the same aggressive, high-energy delivery, they lack the full-scale offensiveness and sheer shock factor that characterized his older content.
Burchan! Hi! Nanigaski! Hi!
Hi, what's going on here? What are you guys doing?
We're dancing! Yeah, we're dancing.
How old
Ready?
are you? How old are you guys? Okay, whoa, please, just for a moment. How old are you?
I'm 15, she's 16.
What are you guys doing here?
Because we want to fucking
Dumb. Okay. Right. Good job.
Does he still carry swastikas and Nazi logos in the background of his streams? Hell yes. Does he still insult people on camera for entertainment value? Absolutely. But compared to the unrestrained wild figure he once was, there's now an undeniable sense that he's been forced to tone things down in order to avoid jeopardizing his probation. While he used to be the talk of the town a few years back, dominating headlines and internet chatter, his overall visibility on mainstream internet platforms has shrunk big time. At one point, he was the subject of countless reaction videos, debates, and think pieces, but now it feels like much of the internet has moved on without him. A recent post on Reddit even asked whether Paul Miller still exists online at all. The responses were telling. Yes, he's still out there, but only in smaller corners of the internet. Many replied that he continues to do live streams and interact with an audience, but his reach is confined mostly to much lesser-known sites. In essence, Miller still does the same old things, but on a smaller stage with a smaller audience, no longer enjoying the viral infamy he once had. We also stumbled upon some scattered news about the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, allegedly filing a lawsuit against him for harassing people online. However, because we could not find any solid, credible sources to tally this info, we can't really say anything definitive about it. It might be one of those internet rumors that gains traction without confirmation, but it highlights how Miller remains a name that people associate with potential lawsuits and legal drama. One incident that was definitely real, though, was his clash with a black man at an airport. The video of this altercation was messy, and it spread quickly among those still following his activity. What happened was that a man recognized Miller at the airport, pulled out his phone, and began confronting him directly. As expected, Paul responded in his typical fashion, launching racial slurs and antagonistic comments. The man looked visibly heated, and it was clear that things could have taken a violent turn if the setting had been different. The only things that prevented this from spiraling further were the fact that the confrontation happened at an airport, under heavy scrutiny, and that Miller himself remains on such a tight federal leash. Otherwise, this could have been one of those explosive confrontations that ended very badly for him. We also stumbled upon one of his videos in which he decided to call out Aiden Ross, one of the biggest streamers on the internet who's no stranger to controversy himself. Aiden Ross is the same guy who got busted a few years back for streaming adult content, so he's not exactly a model of clean-cut online behavior. But compared to Paul Miller, Ross still comes across as far less offensive and extreme. In his video, Paul claimed that Aiden Ross had invited him to appear on a podcast, offering him a payout of $10,000 for the appearance. According to Miller, Ross even sent him a $2,500 upfront as an advance. But things apparently unraveled when Ross's producer stepped in and refused to have Paul on the show, calling the whole thing off.
Aiden Ross, about maybe a year or so ago, year and a half, right, hits me up. And he's like, yo, like, why do you think you're the Joker, or all of this shit? I know he's a Jew. I told him, like, you, like, what do you want? And then he asked me, he's like, listen, I want to bring you on my show. He wants to interview me. So I said, now I know he's got money. So I said, listen, I'll do it for you. I'll come on. But I want $15,000 to come on. Because I have to justify this to the fans. Because you're a Jew. I was like, I have to justify this in some way. So if you pay me, I'll come on. Right? Because I wasn't just going to go on for free. Like, that's, you know, just like Joker says, if you're good at something, never do it for free. So, I'm like, he's like, okay, I'll pay you, right? So we like negotiated on the money. We ended up on $10,000, right? So he was supposed to give me $5,000 beforehand, before I went on the show, and then $5,000 afterwards, okay? Listen to what this does. He gives me $2,500 in Bitcoin. Okay, pays me $2,500. I'm like, all right, well, where's the other 25? He's like, hold on, I'll get it for you, right? I'm waiting. Like maybe 2 hours later, he hits me back up. Now,
what followed was more bizarre. Miller claimed that when Ross asked for the advance money back, he simply refused to return it. And in a twist that sounds almost too strange to be true, Miller said that Aiden Ross broke down over the phone, crying and even saying that he wanted to end his life. Whether or not any of this happened exactly as Paul described is highly questionable, but the way he presented this story only adds to the sense that Miller is still living in a chaotic, unfiltered world of online beefs.
He already gave me $2,500, so I already took $2,500 Jew from this. He hits me up, he's like, listen, my producer says I can't have you on. And I was just stunned. I'm like, what do you mean you can't have me on? I'm like, you've been at me talking about you want me to come on. You paid me, you gave me $2,500, and now you don't want me to come on. What are you talking about? No, I can't have you on. Right? So then I like got pissed off. I'm like, you know what, you're a like you are.
At this point, Paul really seems out of rockers. Watching his recent videos on Goyim.tv paints a picture of a man who's still unhinged, still determined to shock, and still willing to court controversy, even if his stage has grown smaller. While we absolutely do not appreciate the kind of content he continues to push out, it's undeniable that some people still find him entertaining in a very strange, guilty pleasure kind of way. So that's the end of the video. We've tried to walk through every corner of Gypsy Crusader's story, and it truly is one of the most bizarre and controversial internet sagas out there. What happened to Paul on October 12th outside the Metropolitan Republican Club was absolutely unjustified. The men who assaulted him should have faced real consequences. But let's be clear, Paul's choice to respond by spiraling into radicalism, launching harassment campaigns, and targeting nearly every minority group imaginable wasn't some noble act of rebellion. It was toxic, extreme, and completely unacceptable. Some people online romanticize him as a real-life Joker, pointing to the eerie parallels in his story arc. But in reality, he's not a comic book villain brought to life. He's just another guy who took a personal injustice, twisted it, and used it as a weapon to unleash hate on the groups he already despised. And in the end, that choice says far more about him than the world that wronged him. At this point, the bigger question is, who really is Paul Miller? Is he a victim of a society that failed to support him after trauma? Or is he a man who chose the darkest possible outlet for his pain? Did radicalization offer him belonging when he needed it most? Or was it simply an act, a twisted performance to keep his audience entertained at any cost? And perhaps the hardest question, does he truly believe the hate he spews? Or is it all part of the clown mask he refuses to take off? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain. Paul Miller's story isn't just about one man in face paint. It's about what happens when anger, trauma, and the internet collide.